Imagine a world plunged into shadow, where the brilliant light of Rome has been extinguished, a time of chaos, ignorance, and barbarism. This is the image that springs to mind when we hear the term the Dark Ages. But what if I told you that this popular image is more myth than reality? What if this supposed dark period was actually a time of profound transformation, innovation, and the quiet birth of the world we know today? For the next 10 minutes, we're going to journey back in time, not to a world of darkness, but to a world misunderstood. We peel back the layers of myth and misconception to reveal the true story of the early Middle Ages. Forget what you think you know. The real story is far more fascinating. So, what exactly were the Dark Ages? The term itself is a bit of a historical diss. It was coined by the 14th century Italian scholar Petrarch, who saw the period after the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 AD. Dark time of cultural decline, compared to the light of classical antiquity. This label stuck, painting a picture of 1,000 years of stagnation. Historians today, however, largely reject this term. They prefer early Middle Ages, typically spanning from the 5th to the 10th century. Why the change? Because calling it dark ignores the incredible changes and developments that were happening. It is a biased label from a later era that didn't appreciate the unique character of the centuries that preceded it. The fall of Rome wasn't a switch being flipped off. It was a gradual, complex process that led to a new, decentralized Europe. Let's bust some of the biggest myths. First, the idea that everyone was an unwashed, ignorant peasant. While life was certainly hard and literacy was rare outside of monasteries, this wasn't an age devoid of learning. Monks in isolated monasteries across Europe, especially in places like Ireland, painstakingly copied and preserved ancient texts from Greece and Rome. Without them, countless works of philosophy, science, and literature would have been lost forever. They were the hard drives of the medieval world. Another myth, that scientific progress completely halted. It's true there wasn't a Galileo or Newton, but innovation didn't just stop. It shifted. Instead of theoretical science, the focus was on practical technology that could improve daily life. The era was more about applied engineering than abstract thought. So, what really happened after Rome fell? Europe didn't collapse into a single, unified wasteland. Instead, it fractured into a mosaic of smaller, Germanic kingdoms. The Franks, the Visigoths, the Anglo-Saxons, the Lombards. These groups, once considered barbarians by the Romans, began to forge their own distinct identities and political structures. This was the age of warlords and kings, where power was personal and land was everything. The most significant of these new powers were the Franks, who, under the leadership of figures like Clovis and later Charlemagne, created a vast empire that covered much of modern-day France, Germany, and Italy. In the year 800, Charlemagne was crowned emperor by the Pope in Rome, a hugely symbolic act that attempted to resurrect the glory of the Roman Empire and unite Christian Europe under one ruler. His reign is often called the Carolingian Renaissance because he actively promoted education and the arts, trying to rekindle the flame of learning. While emperors and kings battled for land, what about technology? This is where the Dark Ages really start to look a lot brighter. This period saw the introduction and widespread adoption of several game-changing inventions. One of the most important was the heavy plow, or the moldboard plow. Unlike the simple scratch plows of the Roman era, this new beast had a curved blade that could turn over the heavy, clay soils of northern Europe. This simple change was revolutionary. It opened up vast new areas for farming, leading to more food, which in turn supported a larger population. Then there was the horse collar. The old Roman yokes choked a horse if it pulled too hard. The new padded horse collar rested on the horse's shoulders, allowing it to pull with its full strength. Suddenly, a horse could do the work of several oxen, making farming faster and more efficient. And let's not forget watermills and windmills, which were improved and used more widely than ever before, providing free, renewable energy for grinding grain and other tasks. These weren't flashy inventions, but they fundamentally reshaped the European landscape and economy. Of course, this era was also defined by conflict. War was a constant fact of life. With the centralized power of Rome gone, local lords constantly fought for dominance. Warfare was brutal and personal, often fought with spears, axes, and swords. But the biggest military story of the age was the rise of the armored knight on horseback. The invention of the stirrup, introduced to Europe from Asia, it gave a mounted warrior a stable platform, allowing them to brace and deliver a powerful lance charge without being knocked off their horse. This created the medieval equivalent of a tank, the shock cavalry of the night. This military revolution led to the development of feudalism, a social system where kings granted land to nobles in exchange for military service from their knights. Castles also began to evolve from simple wooden forts to more formidable stone structures, becoming the centers of power in a violent and uncertain world. This was also the age of the Vikings, from the late 8th century. These Scandinavian seafarers terrorized the coasts of Europe with their lightning-fast raids in their iconic They weren't just mindless destroyers, though. They were also explorers, traders, and settlers, establishing communities from Russia to North America. So what was daily life like for the average person? For the 90% of the population who were peasants, life was a cycle of hard agricultural labor dictated by the seasons. They lived in small, tight-knit villages, often in simple wattle and daub huts with their animals. Their world was small, and most people would never travel more than a few miles from where they were born. Their diet was simple, mostly bread, porridge, and vegetables from their own gardens. Meat was a rare luxury, but their lives weren't just misery. They had community, faith, and celebrations tied to the agricultural year and religious holidays. The Christian church was the single most powerful and unifying institution in Europe. It was the center of village life, the source of moral authority, and the main provider of what little social welfare existed. The local priest was a powerful figure, and the belief in God, heaven, and hell shaped everyone's worldview, from the poorest farmer to the most powerful king. As we move toward the 10th and 11th centuries, the darkness truly begins to lift, even for the harshest critics. The agricultural revolution led to a population boom. Trade routes, which had shrunk after Rome's fall, began to revive. Towns and cities started to grow again for the first time in centuries, creating a new merchant class.